Eunice Kennedy Shriver was born the fifth of 9 children of Joseph P. Kennedy and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. From the start, Eunice was dedicated to human rights and welfare, especially those of the intellectually disabled.
She was passionate about changing the world, and she was passionate about everybody she met joining her in that.
She comes from a family whose presence on the American political landscape has been felt for decades. But Eunice Kennedy Shriver's life mission wasn't inspired by her brothers John, Robert, or Teddy. She was inspired by another member of her family.
My mother had an intellectually disabled sister named Rosemary, and she saw how difficult it was for her own mother to find programs for her sister, to find ways to have her included in the mainstream of life.
After years of social work and the development of the Joseph P. Kennedy Foundation, aimed at improving the lives of citizens with intellectual disabilities, Eunice Kennedy Shriver came up with an idea. The idea was Camp Shriver.
She had a group of her athletic friends come up and work with her in her backyard. And so we actually participated in those early events to let her see how we might react or how the athletes might react in Special Olympics.
She was a working mother before I really knew very many working mothers. And she was a competitor and an athlete when women weren't competitors and athletes. So she was in the pool teaching kids to swim. She was throwing football. She was teaching archery. She was getting kids up on top of horses and making them ride around, and if they'd fall off, she'd just say, get right back up. And she expected those with intellectual disabilities to be as competitive and as accomplished as her own children.
The first Special Olympic Summer Games were scheduled in 1968 at Soldier Field in Chicago. This amazing day would prove to change lives not only in America, but worldwide.
I can remember when I was standing in Soldier Field with all the athletes on the field for that first competition. I remember her speech, and the highlight of the speech was that and she repeated about 4 or 5 times, and it was, you know, why do we work so hard to bring these athletes together? And she said, because they deserve it. And why is it that we'll continue to make this program better than it is today? And again, she said, because they deserve it.
By starting Special Olympics, she really did it to help parents who couldn't find a camp for their kid, who couldn't get accepted at recreation centers with their kids. And then the program, with her own determination and passion and her rage, really became the biggest and most successful program in the world.
That word really stuck with me, her rage for the way people with intellectual disabilities were treated. And I think Eunice used that rage in such a positive way and built on it and made this a worldwide platform for people with intellectual disabilities.
Special Olympics really became my mother's life. And she never wanted people with intellectual disabilities or athletes in the Special Olympics movement to be looked at as less than great athletes, as less than winners. And that's the way she ran that program, and she ran it like a business, and she ran it like a movement, and that's what it became.
Eunice Kennedy Shriver is recognized throughout the world for her work on behalf of persons with intellectual disabilities. In her efforts, she changed not only the lives of those with intellectual disabilities, but the world in which they live. Eunice Kennedy Shriver passed away on August 11, 2009, leaving her fingerprint on legislation, on perceptions, and most importantly, on individual lives.
I remember I wrote her a letter, and I said, Dear Eunice, I love you, and I just repeated, I love you for the full page, and I signed, Loved Rafer. And I got back from her just, I think 5 words, and it said, Rafer, I love you even more. Boom, and that was it. And I think that that's what we'll do forever. We're going to love her even more as time goes by.
I hope that when they think of her, they think of the fact that she did change the world. They think about what an extraordinary woman she was, and about how forceful she was, and how smart she was, and how capable she was, and that her reach was really worldwide. And I think so many people focus all the time on her brothers, but she was just as tough, just as strategic, just as political and perhaps in the end, perhaps her reach even exceeded theirs.